5 valuable life lessons animals lovingly teach us with animal communication. In this video, I will look at the lessons that have stood out for me. Of course, animals teach us wonderful and valuable life lessons all the time. These are just some of the highlights. And one of the lessons that I'll mention towards the end is about appropriately responding to threats. I think that animals have a very interesting take on that. Hi, I'm Marinda and welcome. I'm author of the book, The Delight Method of Animal Communication. And like you, I just love animals. I believe that we can create a world where humans and animals live in harmony. And I really look forward to this world. Together we can create it. Right, so the first life lesson that animals have taught me is a positive mindset. You can probably picture it very easily. Just watching your dog enthusiastically bringing you a ball, like Artos did just now, in the full and positive expectation that you will throw it for him to fetch, is a really fun lesson in cultivating a positive mindset. And what if we humans believed that everything happens for the best? Okay, in our current day and age, that's sometimes a bit of a stretch, I agree, but what if you just started with yourself and believed that this is possible for you? This little doggy Atos here, every time I throw the ball, he runs with the exact same enthusiasm to go and fetch it. And every time I come out of the house, he looks at the ball very meaningfully, fully expecting that I will throw him the ball. And his enthusiasm just never wanes. He always expects a positive outcome. I really admire him from that. Anyways, I have communicated with a great number of animals, and I've never met an animal with a negative mindset. And that's big, if you just think about it. Animals also don't hold grudges. Yes, I have communicated with animals who have been abused. They will sometimes show me a very quick flash of being hit or what happened to them, but they don't dwell on it. They rather focus on the here and the now. And please note that I distinguish between a negative mindset and sadness, because yes, I have had conversations with animals who were sad. My own Yorkie Bianca was sad, going on depressed after her brother had passed away. We talked about it and found a solution, and then she cheered up again. And taking it to the next level, did you know that our expectations and the way we look at or consider or behold our animals, that it actually influences them? So that brings us to the second point that animals have taught me and that they teach us is positive regard and expectation. Now, I read this story somewhere, and it was presented as a real-life event, and I would love to know who the author is, but not having a source, I will tell you this from memory. A lady, let's call her Jane, wanted to do healing work with horses. She arranged to work with a string of trail horses. Now, the trail horses actually work quite hard. So she went to meet them that evening after their workday. And looking at them standing there, tired, she just felt pity swell in her heart. These poor horses had been out on the trails for the most of the day, and many of them carrying people who really had no idea to ride, and that can't be comfortable. If somebody doesn't know how to ride, it makes it very uncomfortable for a horse to carry a human. So she was looking at them and feeling really sorry for them. And the more she felt sorry for them, she saw the lower their heads drooped. And she went home quite dejected. She felt that her project was in danger of dying before it even started. She called her mentor and told her mentor the story. But her mentor told her not to give up yet and gave her an interesting assignment for the next time she went to the herd. She said, look at the horses and see how magnificent they are. See their beauty and their wonderful free spirit. So the next day, Jane went back to see the herd again in the evening after they had a hard work day. But as she was standing there, she saw their beauty and she saw their magnificence. And as she saw that, some of the horses started to lift their heads higher. Jane could see some of their ears pricking forward and some nostrils flaring. She kept looking and she saw their indomitable spirit, the spirit of the horse, which is so quintessentially a horse. Some of the horses then started walking and then trotting. Jane saw the fluidity of their lines, their pride in how they carry themselves. And then some of the horses started cantering, and the others joined in until the entire herd was galloping madly around the paddock in a crazy whirl of joyful abandon. And this was simply the result of Jane silently communicating her high regard and admiration to the horses. All she did was she stood there and she admired them. And it had such an enormous and powerful effect. This reminds me time and time again to be mindful of the way I look at my fellow human beings and at animals. And the takeout here for me is that not only is a positive mindset healthy for us, but it also has a positive influence on others, whether it be humans or animals, if we regard them in a positive and appreciative way. The third lesson from animals is to live in the moment. Animals just know how to do that. They don't worry about things that haven't happened yet, and they simply live life one day at a time. And we've also all heard the same advice, don't sweat the small stuff. But what if animals had actually mastered this? Animals know how to live in the moment, and they make it look easy. We know this because we've seen them do it. We've watched our cats play with their little toy mice, and we've seen our dog run around with his stick or a ball in his mouth, which is like Artos's forte. But there's something else about animals. Most of the time, they don't worry about the future or regret things that happened in the past. They're just happy to be there where they are, doing what they're doing. For instance, can you imagine Gina the giraffe saying to her friend, "Oh my word, I saw a crocodile at the water hole yesterday. I'm never going to drink from that water hole ever again." That might become a bit of a problem for Gina if the herd stays in that area for a while. And I'm not saying that Gina should go and stick her head in the watering hole right next to a hungry crocodile, but Gina is highly unlikely to do that. You may have seen wildlife documentaries where zebra graze quite unconcerned very close to lions. They know when the lions are hungry and when they're not hungry. Anyway, in a moment, I'll tell you a little bit more about how animals cope with threats and why I admire that. Anyways, so this is also just to keep some balance. This is not to say that animals never worry. While animals might spend very little time of their lives worrying, I have indeed chatted with animals who do worry, but simply because they knew something was up and they were uncertain about what it was. Classic example is when people decide to move house. The animals pick up on that, and it can cause them to feel uncertain. I strongly recommend that we keep the communication channels with our animals open and actually explain to them that we are moving and we're moving to. And if there's something really fun about the new place they're going to, like a big lawn to play on or something like that, please tell them that so they also have something to look forward to. Anyway, so what the animals taught me is to stop worrying so much about what might happen tomorrow or next week or next month, and rather start focusing on what is happening right now. Because if Gina the giraffe worries so much about the crocodile in the watering hole, she might lose touch with the moment and not notice the lion creeping up on her. And have you noticed how much your dog enjoys her life? Just think of him or her throwing zoomies on the lawn. Doesn't it bring a smile to your face? You might even laugh out loud. I know I do. So would you like some of that joie de vivre? If your answer is yes, perhaps you'd like to cultivate that in the moment animal doggy. Now, this is a big one, forgiveness. And we know that animals are really masters at that. I'm actually constantly astounded by the enormous capacity that animals have to forgive. I have seen dogs and horses treated very poorly, yet they remain loving towards the people who mistreat them. Sometimes people hurt or mistreat animals unintentionally. The horsewolf, for example, can be quite traditional in many respects, and sometimes the horses suffer for it. For instance, did you know that that piece of metal that goes into a horse's mouth, that it really hurts them? There's a 2012 article titled "Are Bits Bronze Age Technology?" And the author, Carly Sparks, writes, "What Dr. Cook says about bits is shocking. If it weren't for his extensive academic background, his views might seem altogether unbelievable." Dr. Cook says, "From research completed since 1997, I now have a list of over 200 negative behaviors and 40 diseases," I mean, can you believe that, "resulting from the use of a bit. I kick myself for not having recognized sooner that the bit causes so much mayhem. He says that we've grown up with the presence of a bit in a horse's mouth and accepted it without question, which is something in retrospect I can say quite vigorously was a big mistake. He said I accepted it too, in spite of the fact that I supposedly have scientific training. He says I didn't really consider seriously what the bit is doing to the horse, and it wasn't until it was possible to communicate and control a horse without a bit and switch a horse overnight to bitless that all the information came tumbling in, he says. So, specifically the information that he refers to connects bits to a wide variety of diseases, health conditions, and behavioral issues that until now were not associated with the hardware of a bridle. He says, and it's not just physical damage to the mouth, but I mean, I just shudder about thinking about the physical damage to a horse's mouth. Mouth is such a delicate part of our bodies. Anyway, so he says it's more than just physical damage. Obstructed breathing, impaired gait, and evasive behaviors are among his growing list of bit-induced conditions. I mean, so what loving human being would do that to a horse? That is often the result of ignorance. So, and he continues by saying that bit-induced pain isn't just uncomfortable for the horse. It creates dangerous situations for riders too. He says one of the deep-rooted myths of horsemanship is that the bit actually acts like brakes and stops a horse. Actually, quite the opposite is true. A bit doesn't act like brakes. It actually, on the contrary, causes pain in the horse's mouth. And then a horse is a flight animal, so they try and flee from pain. So when the bit hurts the horse tries to run away. So instead of stopping, your horse speeds up. That is not really a desirable outcome, either from a safety perspective or from a caring for the horse perspective. So we wouldn't willfully inflict pain on our beloved horses, would we? Yes, yet people did it, and they continue to do it because that's what we've always done. Now, what truly astounds me is that horses have put up with this abuse literally for centuries. And I'm amazed that horses have not said enough long ago and told us off. That just shows to me the incredible capacity for forgiveness. I mean, if you think of it, horses are physically much stronger than us humans. They could have rebelled if they wanted to, yet instead of telling us off and injuring us for what we didn't do to them, the great majority of horses remain loving and considerate. And the same with dogs. We fail to educate ourselves on their body language and we transgress on their space. Kids pull dogs' ears and their tails, and the dogs just put up with it. Now, I'm not sure that it's always painful, but I think it can get quite irritating for a dog. These examples are also just the tip of the iceberg. But I think it is a lot of evidence that shows us how incredibly forgiving animals are. Thank you, Arthurs. I also think that we should not continue to prevail on the kindness and forgiveness of animals. If we quite vigorously insist on the respect for our own bodily integrity, we should also consider the bodily integrity of the animals in our lives. And while we're walking away from abusive systems, we might ask ourselves if we're not perpetuating abusive systems ourselves, if we wish for an absence of abuse in this world that we are creating. We might consider also leaving behind the systems where we are the abusers, wittingly or unwittingly. Maya Angelou said, if you know better, do better. We can do better by educating ourselves about the needs of the animals in our care. This is what I see as my contribution to the world. I'd like to see a world where humans and animals live in harmony and with mutual respect. I also see my role as an advocate for animals, hearing their voices and relaying to people what the animals say. We all have our roles to play. If you'd like to be a voice for animals, consider becoming an animal communicator. Any questions? So, by the way, I'd love to know if you have questions. And if you type your questions about animal communication below, I'll try my best to answer it. Also, there's a link in the comments below where you can subscribe to my newsletter. That way, you can get more information on how to make the animals in your life happy and more videos. Sometimes I ask myself if the strategies that animals employ really are appropriate for the world we're currently living in, because they do allow themselves to abuse to quite an extent. Yet, I think their strategies are entirely appropriate for the world that I do want to live in. They answer aggression with appeasement behavior. For instance, did you know that the wall eye, that where the doggy looks out of the corner of their eye, and many people find it so adorable in dogs, and you see in so many pictures online, but that is actually appeasement behavior. When you see the whites of the dog's eyes, the dog is actually saying, please don't fight with me. Dictionary.com has the following to say about the word appeasement: to bring to a state of peace, quiet, ease, calm, or contentment, to pacify, as in appeasing an angry king. Yeah, fortunately. But there are areas where animals draw a very clear line. So most of the time they try to avoid conflict, but if it gets pushed on them, they will get into action. The fierceness of mothers in the animal kingdom is legendary. We know not to come between a bear mother and her cubs. Even a sheep will defend her lambs quite vigorously. And there's this story I found about a sheep named Almina, who proved this to be true. When a pack of dogs attacked her and her lamb, Almina hid her lamb behind her and defended her lamb with all her might. Jay Smythe, a volunteer at Victorian Lamb Rescue, told the dodo that she stood her ground and fought, but she was outnumbered, and her stomping and charging was no match for the gnashing teeth of the pack of dogs who had attacked her. And she was viciously mauled, but she had succeeded. Her baby was untouched. Smythe continues to say that animals form close, loving bonds with their families, just like we do, and I totally agree with that. Sheep are wonderful, intelligent, caring individuals, and they love their babies. It's beautiful to see how protective she is over her baby, and it reminds us that we are not so different from other animals. In the ways that matter, we are the same. My takeout from this is that animals show appeasement behavior to avoid conflict, but when pushed, they will take appropriate action to defend their families. Okay, and you know that my mission in life is to make animals happy. So if you'd like a free booklet, 5 magic ideas to improve your dog's happiness now, just click on the link below in this video. I've pinned it in the comments. And please give this video a like if you've enjoyed it. Thank you very much for watching, and have an awesome day. Bye-bye.